Hello, and welcome to episode 26 of the Queen's Lariat podcast. Today I'm going to give my year end review of the women's division of WWE of 2025. I'm going to give some positives, some negatives, and some people you should watch out for in 2026. But before that, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. And also like, share, follow, repost, and support us any way you can on both of our Queen's Lariat TikToks. We have the Queen's Lariat Podcast TikTok, where I discuss women's wrestling in general. And also there's also a bunch of Joshi content there. And then we have the Queen's Lariat Joshi, where I only discuss Joshi wrestling. I'm going to do reviews. We have two wonderful series, Joshi 101 and awesome Joshi finishers over there. So please like, share, and support us over there on TikTok. Now, on to the episode. The first thing I want to discuss as a positive is Naomi's 2025. We saw her go from being attacked by Jade Cargill at the Elimination Chamber to being exposed as the one who attacked Jade on the following episode of SmackDown. She also was able to win the Money in the Bank and successfully cash in on Io Sky. We also saw her heel character develop from being this crazy type of stalker person to Bianca Belair to this unhinged heel. And I think she did a terrific job this year. Her promos were excellent. The character work was excellent. The wrestling was excellent. And also, I want to say congratulations to her and Jimmy Uso on their first child. And I can't wait until she comes back and we get to see more of this heel Naomi character. The next positive I want to talk about is the Kabuki Warrior and Io Sky storyline that we saw this year. It was just something so different and unique about this storyline. Not only in the women's division, but in WWE in general. We saw a more vicious Asuka. We saw Kairi Sane be conflicted. We even saw Io be conflicted between her and the Kabuki Warriors, and her feeling obligated by tradition to follow Asuka and do what she says, yet being split by her friendship with like Rhea Ripley and some of the other women on the division. And it eventually led to the attack from Asuka and Kairi onto Io. We also saw this relationship between Asuka and Kairi Sane to where it was almost like an abusive relationship where Asuka was putting her hands on Kairi and forcing her to do stuff she really didn't want to do. But I hope in 2026 we can see WWE pick back up on this storyline and we can see a fantastic match between Asuka and Io, and also we can see more between the relationship between Asuka and Kairi. But we'll see. The next positive I want to talk about is the NXT Women's Division. Now, early on in 2025, we saw three of the biggest stars leave NXT and go to the main roster, that being Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, and Roxanne Perez. I think they did a great job of recovering from that and picking up. Um, I think that people stepped up like Sol Ruka, Zaria, Tatum Paxley, of course, JC Jane. We had Blake Monroe debut. Jordan Grace has settled in the NXT and just terrific all across the board there. So I want to give a shout out to the NXT women's division. All right, time to discuss some negatives. The first big negative I want to discuss is the SmackDown women's division. I think this is the biggest negative of the year for WWE women's division. The worst is the Women's United States Championship. Now, I've made videos and discussed the booking of Julia in particular with and without the United States Championship, but I want to just talk about that division in general. Instead of taking that title and building new stars with it, or giving people that don't necessarily have a chance to be in the main women's picture a chance to, really shine with that title, they have done nothing. It seems like the booking and the writing staff here don't give a crap about the women's division on SmackDown as a whole, but particularly the women's mid card scene. They don't care at all about that Women's United States Championship, whether it's on Chelsea, Julia, Zelina, or anybody else, they couldn't care less. And that's just the way I see it. This title has not been on any pay per views, it has not been spotlighted, it has not been given any serious or big storylines, or it has not risen any stars or put anybody in the main event picture. It just seems to me that they couldn't care less. And if that is the case, why did you produce two women's mid card titles? Maybe you could have kept it to one and have it floating like the tag team titles. But this is the thing that really pisses me off and makes me mad about WWE. It's just that lack of care for this women's United States Championship. That plus a lot of other stuff, but this is what, in the women's division that pisses me off a lot. The next thing I want to talk about is the WWE women's title. Now, it started off good with Tiffany as the champion, but they quickly continued to give her terrible feuds. And they quickly continued to put her in the same feud and the same matches over and over again. Also, I felt like they did not do a good job of developing her character beyond what it was, the Valley Girl, Daddy's Girl, or whatever Barbie type character. And I think they did wrong by Tiffany for doing that. And also, if the Jade Cargill current run is not really doing a lot. They're not giving her good, good feuds or good opponents to go against. And no disrespect to Michin or B Fab or whoever, but they're just not doing anything with care. But hopefully they can do better in 2026. But I'm just going to say this right now. The writing staff on SmackDown needs to completely be revamped. I'm sorry. The writers they have right now are just not cutting it. They seem to not care. And this is just for SmackDown as a whole. They seem to not care at all. That whole writing staff just needs to be revamped, especially going into 2026 where you're going to have 3 hours of content. I do not trust that current writing staff to do anything important with the women's division, let alone anything on SmackDown. The next thing I want to talk about, the next negative, is the booking of champions, um, specifically on Raw. It seems that anytime somebody wins the women's world championship, they kind of fall to the wayside. And it's not as egregious as the SmackDown women's division, but it's still pretty bad. Like they strapped a rocket to Stephanie when she won that title. But now they're kind of putting her on the back burner for other storylines, which I understand. I'm glad to see the women's tag division getting shine. But at the same time, your main title over there is that Women's World Championship. And Stephanie could use more competitors to really kind of boost her up. But yeah, and even beyond that, I think they did bad with Io. Like, they really didn't let Io wrestle when she had the World Championship. And the only person she kind of did have a feud with was Rhea, and a little bit with Naomi, but they could have did better by that. And then this I, the only title that I think kind of was booked good was the women's intercontinental title, but that kind of went through Becky. But yeah, I'm hoping better booking for the women's world title on Raw. And then my final negative is the lack of star power in the NXT women's division. Now, I did praise the women's the NXT Women's Division, which, like I said, fantastic roster, but you can kind of tell that they are lacking a big, big, big superstar. So I don't know how they can fix that in 2026. Maybe either bringing someone down with some credibility and like a big star, or maybe they can sign someone, or even push somebody like a Blake Monroe or Jordan Grace a little bit more to be the face of that NXT Women's Division. But that's not as egregious as these other negatives, but just something I wanted to talk about. And then, of course, the people to watch out for in 2026. On Raw, I have Maxine Dupree, the current Intercontinental Women's Champion. If she continues to progress and they put the level of booking they've been giving her behind her and some terrific feuds, they have the roster to do it. I think Maxine Dupree can develop into a big player in the Raw Women's Division. The next person I want to talk about on SmackDown is Lash Legend. I think you can make Lash Legend either the top heel or like behind Jade Cargill over there on SmackDown. Lash Legend has developed pretty well in the ring since she began in NXT. And I think she has the ability to be a top heel over there. The only thing that I worry about is, of course, the booking. But I think Lash Legend has a chance to really break out in 2026. And I really like the pairing of her and Nia Jax as well. The last person I want to talk about over in NXT is Izzy Dame. I think Izzy Dame could be the top heel in NXT. I think her feud with Tatum Paxley has been pretty good. And she has constantly is another one that has been improving in the ring and on the mic. So I really like Izzy Dame over there in NXT. But that was just my review of the women's division in WWE. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok. But thank you for a wonderful 2025. Thank you. I'm out.